Hey Eliza, how are you?
Hi, very well. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. It's been a while since we've like tried to organize it, and I'm like really happy to have you on. It's such a different sort of guest as well. Like we've had people that have been on TV before, and we've had people that have done like really sustainable businesses. And if anyone like obviously is listening, I love sustainable businesses. Like they definitely have a special place in my heart. If you do a sustainable business, I will invite you on the podcast. Um, but
I
yeah,
know, I feel like I skipped the queue.
nah, there's not much for queue. No, I'm joking. There is quite a big queue, but like I don't know. Like I do get loads of people that try to come on, but a lot of them aren't that genuine. It's not. It's all like it's not very targeted either. It's just like these, on like LinkedIn, you get loads of like just spam like messages that aren't targeted whatsoever.
Mm,
So it's the same like that for podcasting, but from like
well,
random people. So
thank you for having me
yeah,
on.
no, you're very welcome. I think. I don't really know where to start with this one, but I think the best place to start is, I guess, a very quick introduction about the circle, and then we can kind of like circle back to
Hey.
that wasn't even intentional to like I guess a bit before you started the
Sure.
circle.
I mean, yeah, we were doing elevator pitches the other day, weren't we?
Hmm.
In our pitch accelerator event. But
Yeah.
the Circle is a resale platform for quality women's wear. Our aim is to make secondhand really easy, and just elevate the experience. Shopping secondhand is not without its challenges, and we are trying to make selling your clothes easy, and we're trying to make shopping with us a really elevated experience that feels like you're shopping new, essentially. And then our main USP is the circle back feature, which I suppose I can go into more later on or now.
Mm.
I don't mind. You you can
Yeah.
dictate the chronological order
I
of this
think I think
podcast.
like yeah, I mean we can go into a bit later, but I'd love to I guess talk about before we jump into the background why you started the circle.
Um, it actually came about really organically. I've been into secondhand shopping and selling for a long time,
Mm.
and I firsthand experienced where I believe the gaps are. And so rather than waiting for someone else to sort them for you, why not do it yourself?
Mm. Thing is, as well, you're coming at this from like a very unique angle, and I think we probably do need to address this,
Go
given
on.
it's just like yeah, made in Chelsea, right?
Yeah.
You must get asked so many questions about made in Chelsea. Like I've had people from The Apprentice on as well. Like they get asked so many questions about The Apprentice. Like
Yeah.
you actually have to wake up at 5 a.m. and stuff like that. Um, but like I guess like you must get asked loads of questions about it all the time.
Yeah, I think what is funny is for me, in many ways, it feels like a lifetime ago. I think I was on it, last on it 2 years ago. But I went on it initially 4 years ago. Yeah. I came off just before the first lockdown. That's when I sort of did my last bit of filming.
Mm.
Um, and so it does make me laugh how timeless it is as a show because people are still, firstly, watching it because it's still going, but also so interested in how it works.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, it gave me a lot of opportunities. I definitely wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now without it. Um, so yeah, I owe a lot to it in many ways. But I'd like to think that I've made everything since everything that's happened since. I'd like to think that I've directed that as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very like relevant topic that we probably jump into a little bit later, but actually let's jump into it now. But it's just like when people go onto these TV shows or they have like a following from somewhere else, like
Mm.
Molly May talked about it on Stephen Bartlett's podcast, which is a very interesting listen. How I mean, say what you want about her, whatever, but like it's a platform at the end of the day, and it's like it's what you do with that platform to take you to that next level. So
Hmm.
it does still require like a massive amount of hard work, and I know how much hard work you're doing for growing the circle. Like I've seen and I've heard like what you're doing, but I guess it's not like people don't think that all the time.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that was something that I was actually quite reluctant about in going on Made in Chelsea in the first place was how seriously I'd be taken afterwards. But I came to the decision that I was in second year of university when I went on it, and I wasn't really going to lose anything. For me, it was extra pocket money, it was exposure, it was a new experience. I was young, I was 20. I really had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Um, Saying that, if I'd gone on it and been an absolute tit, then I might have lost. That might have had some repercussions. But actually, I played it fairly safe, and so I don't think I did anything looking back that I regret, which is quite a good position to be in.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. So I guess like how did you get involved with it in the first place? You said it was at uni, but like how did you get involved?
They one of the producers sent me a message on Facebook, and
Facebook.
yeah, which
That is
actually,
rogue.
I know, and they must just hunt people down. But a lot of my friends also got those messages. And what is funny is to look back, everyone would go, "Oh, lol, just received a message from Main Chelsea," and I was like, "Oops, well, I've actually gone and replied." And then it was just the process of calls and meetings and a sort of a casting, but it didn't really feel like a casting. They just got to know you and saw if you would slot in. And I had mutual friends on it, and yeah, it wasn't the wildest thing for me to go on it. It made
Mm,
relative sense.
mm. So you said like you had nothing to lose going on to it, but I
Mm.
guess what was the actual motivation behind going on it?
I suppose it was. I know I can't use that as another answer, but it was that there was everything to gain.
Mm,
I felt like I would always look back and think, what if I hadn't have gone on it, and it had just been an opportunity that passed me by.
mm.
I've always been a bit of a, I suppose, an actress at school, and I loved being on the stage and stuff. So I just thought it'd be really cool to experience being what it's like being on
When you say
television.
everything to gain though, like what does that specifically
Well, I
mean? Because for
suppose
different people it means different things, right? Like some people would hate
fair.
this, some people
Yeah,
would
no,
really
that's
like it in
true.
terms of personal branding, in terms of that platform that it builds, in terms
I
of
think I just thought,
it means
what's
different
the
things.
worst that could happen? I go on for a hot minute, I don't enjoy it, I come off, and no one will actually remember.
Mm,
So I think it was more of that, and I suppose things, yeah, what could I have gained? Sort of what I've gained now, I'd like to think, but I I, I could have got more out of it in a direct way. A sort of more tangible measurement would be followers on Instagram. I could have gone on
followers, money, like yeah.
and I could have gone on and been way more outrageous, created way more storylines, maybe, and uh, I would have potentially seen a more direct impact on an increase in followers.
Mm.
Yeah, which is an increase in, I suppose, advertising money,
Yeah, yeah.
etc. Um, but I actually wasn't thinking about that at the time. I also didn't know that that was a repercussion at the time either. I just wanted to fun it, like, I just wanted to experience it. I was at uni, and it was
Mm.
just a feather in my cap that other people didn't, not everyone else around me had.
So
And I
it's
suppose
more
there's, to go on it, you have to be a relative, like, you have to have a bit of narcissism in you, a bit of vanity. There's definitely no denying that. And
I love that honesty.
well, you have to, like,
Yeah, I
to
mean,
think that
yeah.
you're worthy, that you're going to be entertaining enough for other people to follow your lives. You have
Mhm.
to be a bit deluded and have a bit of a bit of an ego. And I definitely have that element of, yeah. I mean, look at the job on Instagram. Like, you have to have a bit of narcissism, really, otherwise you wouldn't survive.
Yeah, it's very
um,
true, but it does sound like an innocent sort of like motivation behind actually going on the show because I know so many people that literally go on those sort of shows just to build that following, to monetize, to make that money, or it's like just be
yeah,
famous.
I was
Or
not aware
it sounds very
of.
innocent.
Yeah, I was not aware of those
I'm not
sort of
saying those other things are bad, by the way, like
repercussions.
just personal
No,
motivations,
and
but
it would be a quick fix. And I think also it was quite a quick turnaround, so I didn't really have time to sit down and think. I sought advice from my parents and my friends, and everyone said go for it. My mum played devil's advocate for a bit, but then actually when I said, "What do you really think?" she said, "Oh, you've got you've got nothing to lose." That was
mm,
the motto of my decision, really. And I really, really enjoyed it. I met a lot of people. I got to experience really cool things, travel the world. And I suppose experiencing how television works is really
mm,
interesting.
for sure.
And it got me onto the masters that I did after uni, as in,
Mm,
no doubt about it. I had no sort of, I went, for context, I did a TV journalism masters at City, which is quite a tough course to get onto. And all my comrades had heaps of experience in journalism, whether that's work experience at Sky News or heading journalism society at whatever university they were. And I had none of that because I had no idea I wanted to even
Another one on Made in
consider
Chelsea there.
journalism other than went to Maine in Chelsea and had real life experience of live radio, of interviews, of going on podcasts. Like I'd had real media experience. That was
Mm,
the only thing that I had that got me on the course. So
yeah.
it was a really, really big stepping stone for me.
In that whole, like, flurry of it was 2 years you mentioned, right? So in that
Yeah.
whole sort of, like, flurry of you being on Made in Chelsea and, like, being
Hmm.
on TV, that as you just mentioned, I guess, like, what was the craziest experience that you went through? Either on screen or off screen?
Oh gosh. That is a good question. I think my experience differs to others who are on it because I was doing it from uni. So I was traveling down from Durham twice a week, which is a bit crazy, two, three times a
That's a
week. And
long
it's a
way.
long
Yeah,
train.
that's a
Yeah.
long way.
um, but it meant that I always stepped out of it. So I never got swept up in it quite as much as I definitely could have done if I lived in SW3.
Mm,
So I think that on the one hand, it kept me really grounded. But on the other hand, as well, Durham is a tiny bubble, so it quite quickly the news quite quickly spread, and I did feel that often eyes were on me. So I'd say that was
mm.
what I felt was craziest was how one minute nobody really knew who I was, and then the next minute everyone in Durham, which is such a small town. I mean, it's literally 2 miles
Yeah,
radius,
it's tiny.
and so I couldn't walk anywhere without someone or feeling like someone recognized me. But then I'm sure that perpetuated itself in paranoia. I'm sure I assumed people recognized me, whereas I could have just had like a bogey on my face, or and they're going like, but I'd always go, oh my god, they know who I am,
Yeah,
then,
yeah,
and
yeah. Did that come with any, like, I guess, paranoid anxiety, I guess, like, because you were on TV?
um,
That's something that, like, doesn't really get mentioned, I guess, on the other podcasts or, like, other things that you get put on, right?
you just you grow a thick skin quite quickly. You have to really.
Mm,
And I definitely made the mistakes of doing this sort of toxic Twitter scrolls when episodes were aired and nobody on Twitter has anything nice to say. And
no.
so I sort of had to learn that it really doesn't matter and just to not take anything to heart, really.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm not gonna mention his name, but he was on Dragon's Den, and he's Indian originally, and he got investment from, like, I'm not gonna say how, like, which dragons, but he got investment from a couple of the dragons, and, like, basically he had an amazing product. He got investment, like, from two dragons. He got an amazing package. Went on Twitter, instead of people congratulating him, it was just, like, filled with negative stuff. It was
Yeah,
filled with racism. It was just awful.
awful.
And
No,
he did
Twitter is
say
so toxic.
it did really, like, mess him up. It fucked up his
Hmm.
mental state for sure. Um, so he just, like, deleted social media just because of that, and he was quite young at the time as well. So
No, it's such a shame.
yeah, that's why I
Um,
asked the question, because, like, you were 20 years old.
yeah. Yeah, but I think I was surrounded with good friends, and I'd like to think I've got a good head screwed on my shoulders. I don't know. I just would could rise above it, essentially.
Mm,
But I also understand that not everyone can do that, and you've actually that's something. If anyone else was considering going on the show or going on reality TV or just putting yourself out there, like
mm.
sticking above the parapet, I would just say be aware that not everyone's going to like you, and you've got to be willing to take that and ride above it.
Did you always wanna get into business?
No. No, I went on the masters wanting to go into documentary making.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Business was never really on my periphery, actually.
Mm,
Um, but throughout my masters, I think my masters might have been a bit of a wake up call because I think I went in a bit naive thinking that I would be really good at it. And actually, when I was on my masters, I realized how unbelievably talented so many people are. Um, and I realized that they had more sort of drive and love for what we were studying than I did, maybe.
mm.
Um, and so I didn't, when I graduated my masters, I didn't straight away pursue documentary making or journalism. Um,
Was that
yeah.
a difficult place to be in as an individual, given that, I guess, you've been on Made in Chelsea for 2 years, you've done your masters, you think that this is the ultimate goal of, like, for you, you get to the end of uni and you're like, other people got bigger passions than I do for this. I'm not as into it as I thought it would be.
Um, I was in a really privileged position that social media was my main source of income, and
Mm.
actually still is. And so it bought me time, which is, yeah, such a privilege because not
You didn't
everyone
wanna do
has
that
that
forever?
flexibility. What?
Social media?
No, so this is what's actually quite strange. So I'd set myself a year. I said I'm going to leave my masters, give myself a year, see what I can make of it, see if I enjoy it, see if it goes anywhere. Um, and I think quite quickly I realized it wasn't that fulfilling as my full-time gig. Uh, and I found it quite lonely. I think unless you're in one of those Instagram couples whereby you've either got a boyfriend who is your business partner slash photographer,
Yeah.
or you're one of those travel couples that just looks sexy on a beach all the time. It's just really lonely. So yeah, I think I actually sat down after, I think it was about 5 months. I graduated my master's in July. 5 months later, I thought this isn't doing social media full time isn't fulfilling, and I updated my CV and made it all lush and plush and was ready to fire it at fashion journalism outlets. Actually, that
Mhm.
was what I'd realised I wanted to go into. Um, and I got an email from a guy called Austin saying that he was wanting to set up a resale platform, and he had seen via my Instagram how much I was into secondhand clothing and how big a part of my life it was, and he was wondering if I wanted to chat. So that's sort of how the circle came about.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and what's so crazy is I updated my CV in the morning. I sat down for lunch with my housemate and I said, right, CV's done. This afternoon I've got a list of places to fire. And I was sat down at lunch eating my wrap, and up came this email. And I just went to my housemate, I went, bloody hell, this is too good to be true. Someone wants to talk about creating our own resale platform.
Mm.
Um, and I felt actually a bit silly that I hadn't had to go through the hassle of applying to 100 places to
Yeah,
get
yeah,
turned
yeah.
down 99 times. I was like, this is so, I feel a bit spoon fed here. This is too good to be true.
Yeah, I mean, but, like, I guess I where the way I always look at these things is that opportunities come from other things that you've done, right?
Mm.
So it's like, um,
And I suppose I skipped a bit in the
yeah,
5 months being a full-time influencer. I Every single Saturday I went to a secondhand boutique and tried on loads of clothes and promoted it and tried to open the eyes of whoever was watching, to the sort of breadth of secondhand shopping and the bargains and the brands and the
exactly.
quality. And so actually, yeah, it was a in hindsight a really good investment of my time, because at the time it was free, and I often questioned whether it was worth doing,
Mm,
because obviously it's every weekend for an entire day, not getting paid but just doing it because you love it.
mm.
And yeah.
But I mean, like, for that, right? What you're essentially doing is building up your personal brand there of someone that cares genuinely about secondhand clothing, the circular economy, and that sort of thing. Other people in I guess, like, people listening, it's like, yeah, but I don't want to be on social media. I don't want to do that. But there's other
Mm.
ways that you can put in work behind the scenes. Like, for me,
Absolutely.
for instance, for Wing, it's like I'm not big on social media for my personal page. The podcast Instagram page is like not that big, but it's like maybe two K followers. But the thing is, for Wing, right, we've done things in the past that haven't been huge in terms of like value immediately, but it's got us in different places just by chance that eventually have led to a really cool opportunity for us. Like, for instance, we
Hmm.
applied to this really really competitive application, like this competition that we applied to, and we knew we weren't going to get it. But one of the judges was one of these really big people at a corporate. I'm not going to say which one. He was really interested in the card. He actually bought one himself, and then eventually,
Ah,
like, we sold to that company. So
wow.
we didn't win the competition, but we
Hmm.
ended up just being on the desk of an individual that is a decision maker. So it's these things kind of behind the scenes that if you do them on a consistent basis, it can really
Definitely.
help you. And like what you were doing there, that's what it was doing.
Yeah, and I think hindsight's a funny thing. I didn't see it like that at the time. And that would have
You
actually
never do.
been
You never
no.
do. You never do.
And if I'd had that advice earlier, I may have invested more time into doing it, or
Mm,
spruced it up a bit. And actually, we recently reached out. We opened applications for an intern, and the applications were, I was so overwhelmed by them, because they were so, everyone was so qualified, and also so many people had put in the work to create portfolios or Instagram accounts on the side, and all these things that they were interested in. And it was, free time for them, but actually it gives you such an edge,
mm,
and it
yeah.
really shows that you're interested and invested in it. And I think it's really cool. So yeah, I that's something I would take on in future if I ever end up doing something else.
Yeah,
It's
for
like,
sure.
do the things that you enjoy when you can invest
Mm.
that time into it.
So Austin messaged you. What was
Yeah.
next?
Then we got talking, and it seemed that our ideas and ethos really aligned. He already had a couple of team members. I mean, long story short, from Austin's side, over lockdown, he had created a secondhand resale platform for kids' clothes, and actually, it very quickly became the biggest one in the UK. But with kids' clothes, it's really hard with the margins, and it's really hard with the economics. So he was looking into how women's wear worked, and that's when he saw me, having been reposted by a secondhand boutique or something. And so he was seeking my advice on how sort of secondhand women's wear works. And that's something
Mm,
that not only have I been shopping in, but I've had my own Depop account for 4 or 5 years. So I'd like to think I've got a wee bit of knowledge on it. I'm learning a lot as I go now, but yeah, we got talking, and I met the other members of the team, and we all just really clicked and aligned, and it was sort of a
mm.
goer. And we've started building it
Amazing.
from
So
from
what's your
scratch
role?
since.
What's your role in the company now? Are you like what have you come in as?
So we don't have, it's so funny. So I'm a co-founder.
Mm.
We're yet to
I guess
delegate
define roles. It's just all
specific, yeah,
co-founders.
because it's
Yeah.
so blurred, and
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
our roles are so interchangeable and
It's
fluid,
more about
and
it's more about strengths and skills rather than actual titles. And we had that at the
totally.
beginning of yeah, for sure, for sure.
But I would say that I'm predominantly in charge of the fashion side, so sort of vetting the brands that we do, the quality control, pricing, and then the broadcast side of it. So I do all the content, um, the sort of organizing of the adverts and filming and all our social media sites. And I've got someone on to help me with all that too. So that's really good. So the two of us sort of blitz it together.
Fantastic. What have been, I guess, challenges for you? I mean, given your background, being made in Chelsea, and like how you had that following, is it difficult growing an actual like marketplace platform now that requires like sophisticated technology, requires like sophisticated, I guess, like growth mechanisms and just like, I guess, raising money, like doing
Hmm.
partnerships
Hmm.
with certain brands? You going into those conversations, what are there any challenges that come out of that?
I think people might assume that you risk not being taken seriously.
Hmm.
I'd like to think otherwise. I think it's actually how you spin it, because you can spin it however which way you want, really, as in why you went on a reality show. And I'd also think it's how you hold yourself, and how you come across. And I think people quite quickly forget maybe the reality side. I think with me as well, because actually I wasn't on it that long compared to a lot of people, and I also left main Chelsea on 20,000 followers or something, and the rest I've built up since. So I don't think everyone who follows me is a direct follower from main Chelsea.
Mm,
But yeah, yes, okay, you're not, main Chelsea doesn't equip you with the skill set of investment or pitching, or or any of the sort of behind the scenes of a
mhm,
business. But that's where my other two team members, who aren't so front of house, let's just say that they like to stay more behind the scenes. That's their repertoire, but I'm learning a lot from them, and I hope one day to be in that seat as well. But at the moment, yeah, they're learning from me on the sort of fashion and broadcast,
mhm.
and I'm learning from them for the numbers.
I'm a strong believer that like nothing can really equip you for this apart from actually doing it. Like,
Yeah.
I think school and university business courses, like, they do help for sure. Like, I did a business course a few months ago, and I'm still doing it. It's incredibly useful. It's taught by
Hmm.
some amazing people. However, the best they can do is give you the kind of resources and, I guess, like, examples on how to execute certain things. But when it comes to actually learning things day to day and like the day-to-day running of a business, you can only really do that yourself and
Yeah.
actually learning from the experience. Um, so, I mean, me as a CEO for like now compared to when I first started, huge difference, like massive difference. I think from now up until like in 12 months' time, it'll be massively different as well. I think for you, it'll be the same sort of journey because still relatively new in the
Yeah. How
space,
long
right?
has I'm gonna say it wrong. Wing.
Yeah, wing. Been going for like 10, 11 months. So it's
Okay,
still like
nice.
fairly new. But yeah, it's just I guess like taking yourself out of the business is just like you as an individual, you become a better leader, you become a better like communicator and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So for sure, like you can only do it from actually you can actually learn you can only learn from doing it is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, totally.
Um
Yeah. And
yeah.
you sort of have to throw yourself in the deep end. And I think a lot of people, a lot of it is winging it, and you're trying and testing different things, and you're learning as you go, and you have to make the alterations as and when they come about. And I think actually that's something I noticed. The difference between myself and Austin is, and I think this might actually be a thing because I did do a bit of reading about it, is female founders, and I'm using my what are these called when I say female founders?
Quotations.
Quotation. So like female founders
If people can't
are
see, if people are listening on Apple or Spotify, yeah, you should do the quotation marks.
I did quotations with my fingers. Um, are quite often stereotyped, and I fit into the stereotype as perfectionists, and we're much more cautious, and we don't want to put out an incomplete product. Whereas often male founders, quotation marks again,
Mhm.
um, are a lot more sort of bam, let's just go for it, let's kill it, let's push it.
Yeah.
And they'll put out a product that they know that there's things that need to be tidied up, but who cares? Let's just get it out there. Let's get it in the world, and let's just try it, and we'll cross the bridge of the things that need tidying up as and when we go. And I think actually you need somewhere in the middle. But I would say that I had to be. I was quite cautious and a bit nervous
Mhm.
about coming out because I knew that there were little things that might not be as efficient as they could be. But actually, you do just have to get the product out there, and every single big business that exists now will have started off so different. They would have had different branding, different uh, data, different
For sure.
technology,
Yeah.
and you know everyone starts from somewhere, and you actually just have to go and experience the journey rather than waiting for it to be perfect because it will never be perfect.
100%. I love that answer. That's an amazing answer. What's the future of the circle before we wrap up the podcast?
So, in a dream world, we would be a famous resale platform in the UK and hopefully Europe before then taking over the world.
Hmm.
But and I suppose in our I've often been told this is a sort of jargon response, but it's actually something I really believe and really want to have the impact on, and that is converting more people to shop secondhand. That is the bottom line of why we're doing this.
Mm.
Because there are many more bigger money making businesses that we could go into to make fast cash, but and that's not why we're doing this. You know, this won't necessarily be a profit making business straight away, and but actually we want to have a big impact, and it's important that people shop secondhand, and we're trying to alleviate the challenges of shopping secondhand. So yeah, that's a sort of I'm waffling. I need to come up with a full stop somewhere. I'm going to put the full stop in right now.
No, that's a good
Shop
answer.
secondhand!
It's a good
Exclamation
answer.
mark.
Okay, fantastic. Eliza, it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast. I loved having you on.
Thank
How
you.
can people stay in touch with you? And also, I'm sure they want to stay in touch with the circle going forward.
Yes, so follow us on Instagram. That is at the.circle, spelt Cirkel, before anyone follows the reality show by accident. Um, and you can follow me, Eliza Batten, if you so please. And I suppose if you really want to find out more, you can email me at eliza@thecircle.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Eliza, for coming on.
Thanks for
And
having
I'm
me.
sure we'll speak very soon. Thanks so much.
Hopefully. Bye.